Welcome to everyone to another episode of Some Days Today. All right, so we are continuing to try to bring some visuals to our guests on YouTube. So we actually recently launched a YouTube site. So hopefully you all, if you're listening, you can go follow us. It's Some Days Today. But of course, you can also still catch us on your favorite podcast medium. So let me do an introduction. Welcome to Some Days Today. And if you're discovering us for the first time, this is the podcast where we encourage you to live your best life starting today. My name is Bola Odina, and my co-pilot here is Mack Odina, who is also my husband, partner in life. And I think on the last episode, what I started calling you is my soul supporter.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, do you want to?
You look great. Wow. As always. I think that's, if you're listening, you definitely want to go on YouTube, see what Bola looks like.
Interesting. Thank you. I'm actually saying that because obviously it's really late. Well, obvious to you and I. Yes. I think it's like, what is it, 10 o'clock?
Well, is that late?
It's been a long day. I am exhausted. Aside from Some Days Today, I also have a full-time job where, we're building a business for our consulting practice. Mm-hmm. We also have a family. So I feel like I've literally been running around all day trying to do the business, trying to cook.
Bola has 3 grown
children
as kids.
Yeah. They're cute. You can see some of them.
By Bola, if you don't know us, I mean us.
Oh yeah, together. That's true. Yeah. I guess not so awkward if it was with somebody else. That's the state of a lot of marriages these days. So,
sure.
Yeah.
But when you say it that way, then it's kind of like it's her kids.
It's her kids, yeah. And you don't want nothing to do with them. Yeah. I'm only here for the woman. But yeah, so anyways, and what's also not great about this, so yes, let me go back. So the reason I was looking at you funny when you said you look great is because I'm so exhausted that I literally had to try to pull myself together, put some makeup on, some lip gloss, really. So yeah, hopefully.
Because part of living your best life is being consistent, I guess. Sometimes you just want to chill, though. We have been doing a lot of chilling.
Why? Why are you saying this?
What do you mean? Consistency or what?
Yeah, consistency. Yeah,
because that's, if you want to accomplish what you want to accomplish.
You're saying that's why we're doing this.
Yeah, that's why we're doing
it. Even so late. Okay, because I'm like, I'm not really sure I'm understanding what you're saying. So yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
That's the point.
I didn't bridge the logical gap there. Yeah, so we're doing it despite the fact that we want to go to sleep. Because
this is not a good way to start off a podcast. You got to start off with lots of energy, get people excited about what they're about to listen to.
I think people just want authenticity, which, by the way, was our last topic. I wanted to do a topic on sensitivity, but we're waiting on that. I want to fully get some grasp of it, but I think next week, hopefully, we will have finished the book.
What book are we reading?
It is called The Big Leap. It's right now, actually, we're looking at it. We're listening to it.
The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks.
Gay Hendricks.
And you know how I came across that book is, when I was getting ready to leave my full-time job to start my own business, I was having a lot of sit-downs and meetings with, just people who've been in business for themselves for a long time and trying to get a sense for any advice that they had. And this book was recommended, I want to say, probably no less than 3 times by 3 different people. A lot of people, that and the E-Myth. The E-Myth was another one that came highly recommended.
Very good book.
So the person whose last emphatic recommendation for this book that really made me decided to get it was the same person who said, if you're going to go into business for yourself, understand it's a process as with anything else. And if you're going to start, be sure to commit in your mind mentally at least 5 years to this. So don't start if you're only going to do it for like a year and then look back and get frustrated, feeling like things haven't progressed as quickly or as far as you would like. He said, you can't truly assess what's going on in your business, the growth, what you're learning, the potential for it, unless you've dedicated a good 5 years to it. And I thought that was really good because that basically framed my approach to the practice moving forward. So it's funny, we're actually coming up on a year soon. I think my last project with my last job ended in May. So around this time last year. And for another month or so, I was on the bench, quote unquote. But it was soon after that, so maybe mid-June, that I really started exploring the possibility of starting my own firm. And I think you were the one who registered us. So I think you registered us officially sometime in June.
June 14th.
June 14th. So a month from now, we should actually celebrate, but that's another business. But I will say this was around the time that I started Some Days Today as well. So I think that
you have a date on that one?
We probably do have a date. I should go back to check out the very first recording of Some Days Today. But yeah, I mean, we're coming up in a year. And to double back to address what I was saying about, dedicating at least 5 years to an endeavor such as starting your own business, it hasn't felt like a year. And I feel like we've made great progress and are having a really good time with it. So it's been really good thus far. And I think that was sound advice in that I'm not really counting the days or the years, or I'm not stressing about things not happening as quickly as they should. So for anyone out there, especially given that you all are our audience who are trying to live your best life the best way you can, as with anything, when you're trying to give birth to something, you've got to give it time. So if you're starting your new business, just give it a good commit to at least 5 years, I would say, before you decide whether or not you want to stick with it. So, yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. And the thing about the Big Leap, there isn't a chapter in there where he talks about what we're going to be talking about, like some questions for you to find what he calls your genius.
Your zone of genius.
The zone of genius.
Yeah.
And so, I think that it's very similar to the topic we have today, which is...
So the topic, so what I'm calling it is, get to know us better. So the reason why we're doing this, so I'm going to give the backstory. Number one, we have a new YouTube channel. So I want folks who are discovering us outside of our regular podcast to get to know us so that they have a background on who we are, our personalities. Obviously, if you've been listening on, the typical podcast medium for some time, you probably have a good sense for who we are. So bear with us, but we are asking different questions. So, so this is also going to be new for those who are listening, who've known us for some time, because the questions are meant to provoke like deep insight into the person that you are interviewing, and also allow you to really be introspective about the responses. So I pulled the questions from...
Have you already thought of the answers?
No, there are 40 questions. So let me just set the stage. So if anyone has seen, is it And One? There's a show on YouTube called...
I was just looking at a version of that here. It's not And One. Well, it might be And One. There might be a version.
The card is And One. And forget the name of the show, but the show is on YouTube. And I'm sure if you guys put in And One, you'll be able to pull it up. But it essentially pairs up two people who have some sort of relationship. It could be a mother-daughter or, parent-child. It could be best friends. It could be lovers. It could be husbands and wives. It could be exes. And what it does is it pairs up two people, and you'll pick a card from a pile of cards that has...
Is it Skin Deep you're thinking
Skin
about?
Deep.
Skin Deep. Yeah, because I was just looking at they have ads now where they're actually selling the cards, so you can
you could buy them. Yeah.
Buy it and
So it's called Skin Deep. It's a great show. I like it because I'm the type of person that likes to get beneath the surface of individuals anyways, and I think it allows for meaningful conversations to take place. So why I wanted to do this as a way to reintroduce ourselves to the potential audience is number one, we've been doing it with our family members. So we've, and friends, given that we're still quarantining, and we've been having a lot of Zoom calls. So, recently we've developed our own set of questions to ask to our friends, family members as a way to get to know them on a deeper level. And those conversations have been pretty insightful and meaningful. So, I've really enjoyed them, not only for the opportunity to get to know the other parties better, but also because you are thinking about the answers for yourself, which also forces you to sort of do some thinking and soul searching if you're going to be honest. So I do think this is going to be an exciting way for the audience to know us. And just to give it a little credit, so the questions we'll be asking today is not from And One, which is the
Skin Deep.
From Skin Deep, but the name of the card is And One.
Is it one? Okay.
Or it's And something. I don't know. But so it's not from there. But if you look up Skin Deep, you can get those cards. I would actually like to get it myself.
I'm sorry, those we're gonna have to edit that out.
Why?
We need a sponsorship first.
Okay.
They need to reach out.
But yes, so you can get those cards if you want. However, I'm pulling these questions that we'll be asking each other today from where is this from? This is from Pinterest. This was pinned on Pinterest, and it's from someone whose site is called journalsmarter.com, and it's someone who basically, encourages you asking these sort of questions to get to know yourself better, as well as your life's purpose as you embark along your journaling journey. So with that, before we really dive into the questions, I do want to ask, do you journal?
No.
I feel like you do some form of journaling. I feel like you're always doodling or writing notes to yourself or emailing, I suppose that could ideas.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, it depends on what you call journaling. I absolutely. Whenever I run into some sort of thing that I'm dealing with, some sort of issue, I try to solve it within. Like I try to come up with a solution. Like I try to think about the logic behind it. I try to think exactly what to do. And sometimes I'll even go and do research and be like, what are people saying about this particular issue? Mm-hmm. And whatever I come up with, and it may not be what I stick with, but I want to try to make myself remember it. So I will write it down, like whatever rules that I'm coming up with. Mm-hmm. And then oftentimes, which is what I did today, I'll print it out so that I can have it as a reminder for myself. Mm-hmm. Tape it to the wall. Yeah, so if you want to call that journaling, then yes. But I don't do here's what I did today.
Like a recap.
Yeah, or, like I don't do it consistently. It's just like, what I ran into an issue that I want to deal with. I want to learn how to, deal with it. So, I'll try to figure it out. Sometimes I'll reach out to you and we'll have conversations. So it's just,
So you're journaling, or you're writing down and capturing your lessons learned.
Yeah, exactly.
As you go through your life. Now, do you find yourself going back to sort of reflect on those lessons learned, or look through your captures along the way to see, if you were to encounter the same issue or concerns again, looking back to see what insights you had for resolving them at the present time?
Not as much as I should, which is why I've taken to printing them out. Part of the reason why I didn't do that in the beginning is because I didn't want people knowing what I'm struggling with. And that's exactly what I'm doing right now.
You didn't want your family or your wife to know what you were struggling with? But that's interesting, because I feel like we would talk about it. So no, you still, we didn't always talk about it?
But definitely not. Definitely not before, no. I mean, there are things, obviously, well, not obviously to most people, but I know that that I struggle with stuff. And so I think you've always been wanting to come and be helpful, but a lot of times I feel like I want to have to deal with it on my own first, or I feel like perhaps your I want to say pleasant disposition or your optimistic disposition does not lend well to my trying to figure out exactly what it is and I'm going to do with it, because it's always rosy, and for me it's kind of like, well, that's not, I mean, it's not, I can't just drop it kind of a thing. So
I think you're right. I think it's not only always rosy, but I think I never truly put too much weight on a lot of things that a lot of people put a lot of weight on. So I probably end up coming off as more dismissive, or maybe not dismissive, but maybe
I could see that term. But not necessarily dismissive is like, oh, just give it away, but more like not putting enough weight on it and
on why it should be a bother to you, or to whoever it is. That's true. That's something that I'm also trying to work on, is because I really don't allow stress and certain things to occupy my space for too long. I mean, obviously there's certain things that get to me that I need to process, but for the most part I try to quickly look to resolve it. So I think that has sort of chipped away at my empathy, and more empathetic side. So I need to be, I need to be more present and to practice patience with people when they share their issues with me more.
And I don't know necessarily if it's a patience thing. It's so interesting. And we do this all the time. But it's so interesting because I your friend, our friend Reese, she has this similar type of disposition where she doesn't really see people and what they're doing, or not too bothered by things. And so I kind of started doing my own kind of theorizing about what it is that's causing it. And both of you guys don't have great memories, like short-term memories that you let, so it's kind of one of these things where it's like you let things go because it's not, this is just my theory. But anyways, I say this to say that it's not necessarily an empathy thing so much as it's you just don't, if you don't deal with it, you don't know how to think about it in that way. You don't, like, part of what I'm doing when I try to solve for this is like, because I know I've dealt with it now, I've solved for it, and now I can go and tell somebody else. Like if I feel like my children are dealing with the same thing, a lot of times I'm like, I want to solve it because I want to be able to tell them how to solve it.
Yeah.
And so I just feel like, like for example, when we talk about this with our daughter who doesn't necessarily retain information really well, and like I just can't understand why I just presented this to you and you can't get it. Like I can't empathize with that.
Right.
Like I just don't get it.
Yeah.
So
that's
what
true.
it is.
That's true. We lead with our experiences and how we understand the world. And a lot of times if it's vastly different from how someone else experiences the world, we may be missing each other. But I think if we are, once it's brought to our attention, I think we can also be more sensitive to it by trying to slow down and asking yourself, should I care about this more so? And that's what I've been asking myself as of late is, I'll have an exchange with a friend or someone, and immediately I may revert back to my typical response. But sometimes if it still seems awkward, I'll go back and rethink and play, sort of what you tell me that you do all the time, which I don't typically do, which is spin. Now I'm forcing myself to go back and replay that episode if I remember, and trying to figure out if I can make another decision to be better and be there for that individual, choosing to do so. Right. And there are times when I've decided it's probably best for me to call this individual back and just talk about how I missed it. So no, I mean, that's the area of growth that I'm working on.
Yeah, I mean, I think it helps. Like whenever you get your feelings validated, I think it helps, and that's the key to everything. And I mean, that's the key to all situations where there are, somebody's feeling some type of way. That's the key to any situation where there's conflict or whatever the case may be. And so a lot of times if you can't see it, it's about frameworks. It's like, okay, somebody just said something. And sometimes you can't even, like, it's hard to even begin to see that you should use a framework, because a lot of times you can't even see that this person is bringing to you an issue that they're struggling with. Because a lot of the times when people are bringing it, they're not necessarily saying, oh my God, I'm struggling. They might just say it in a way because they're also afraid of exposing themselves. And so they don't want to seem vulnerable as well. And so it's kind of hard to see exactly when that is. But I know that there are times when, especially when that person is very clear that they're struggling, that you've played that role. I've seen you do it.
Because empathy is actually one of my top strengths. We spoke about this recently. So if you've ever done an assessment of yourself, my top 2 strengths are strategic and empathy. So I am highly empathetic. It's just I miss things that could be considered serious. So I appear as if I'm not as empathetic as I am. But it's funny, talking about this actually now makes me wonder if that's what's going on with Molly and Issa.
Lord have mercy. Come on, man.
You know what I mean? Huh? First of all, that's been a hot topic on the social media sphere. Like, really? Everybody is talking about. I think last week Molly was trending when she pretty much not ruined, but like Issa's
she did not help her party. get
yeah, but remember they got into a fight. They almost got physical.
Oh, that one. Yeah. Okay, that's right.
No, Molly was trending. She was like #1
on Sunday
on Google or what have you.
People are really invested.
Yeah,
and insecure.
But no, that's a great point though, because I think we've been doing segments on relationships and why relationships matter. Do you want some water?
No, I'm good. Thank you. I got water.
So we've been doing a special segment on that, and I know you've been having some conversations with some of your friends to explore male friendships. I should probably have the same, or maybe I've been having a lot of conversations with my girlfriends, but I should probably do a recording of 1 or 2 just to also explore that. But female friendships can be pretty significant in women's lives, because you look to, as you say all the time, women want to feel like they're part of a tribe and feel supported, and you also pull your strength from that community, but they can also be very difficult, judgmental, stressful, and for those who've done the work on themselves, it may be easier to then, not have it be so stressful, and also allowing that individual to be there and be a good friend to their friends. But anyways, I'm saying all this to question whether or not Molly and Issa need to do some work on themselves individually so that they can learn how to be better friends to each other. Because I was really surprised by how quickly things disintegrated between the two of them.
Are we making this episode about Molly? I just want to know, because I need to start thinking about what happened there, and then because unlike everybody who was commenting on Molly and Issa, I haven't really given it much thought. It's like, okay, that's interesting. Good episode. All right, moving on to Westworld, which
Westworld
ended. So
it did.
I really didn't have much else to watch. It was just something.
But yeah. So, anyways, that may be something for me to think about and explore, but I wonder, if the 2 women need to do some work on themselves. Anyways, so now, before we jump into today's topic, which we'll get to, I did also want to say that I think you've always been someone who, did a lot of writing. I remember when you went to semester at sea, and I would get packages of letters from, your various trips when you were in college, detailing your experiences, and
Yeah, where are those?
I don't know where they are.
I swear to God, bro. That was
really sweet.
Man.
That was really sweet. I don't know where they are. I'm sure they're somewhere in New Jersey, in Eunice and Julius's house.
Threw them away.
Why would I
First of all, you know what? Every time, this is so sad. everybody would get their package. I was like, I got my girl. She's gonna be writing me. And I felt it was kind of like being in jail, but actually having a great time.
Yeah.
So not like being in jail at all.
So you were expecting a care package that never came from me.
Yeah.
I know. I apologize. I'm not the best at these things. Once again, this is now. I'll probably do a better job.
I think you were living your best life.
I was trying to live. Yes, I was. Yeah. I was definitely trying to live. I don't know if it was quite my best life, but I definitely was trying to live. So, but I did miss you.
I went away and then you just...
I did miss you.
Swear.
You know what that time period reminded me of, which once again, we just had another celebration of that, is Joe Scott. That was the year that Joe Scott's album came out. I think
Versus.
So we just the Versus battle just took place 2 weeks ago with Erykah Badu and Joe Scott. Once again, speaking of strong female relationships, I mean, number one, the music was so heartwarming because it took me back to my younger days and being in college and just the beautiful space that I was in. But I'm sure obviously it's been written about since, just the camaraderie, the support, the love that they showered on each other on that Versus episode. It was so beautiful. I walked away feeling so inspired, but I also took something away from it in that, I need to be more effusive with the people, especially the women that I enjoy in my life. Like I need to be intentional about reaching out to them and just making them feel loved and covered and cocooned. I think it's such a beautiful gift to give someone. And there's no reason why, if you're feeling someone like that, if you're enjoying them and what they give to you, there's no reason why you don't dish it back. So that's something that I want to work on more. But yeah, so that's one thing. Speaking of writing, why, do you have something to say about that?
Do I have something to say about? I don't know if I have something necessary. The thing is, we keep on talking about topics, and then maybe what we should do instead is have a topic based on whatever the hell we ended up talking about instead of coming in and saying, here's what the topic is. Because our editor is our daughter, and she's like, on the last episode, she's like, wait a minute.
Don't expose the back kitchen, the what's going on in the kitchen.
Why not? So This is some days today, right? This is basically about a whole get it done.
Uh-huh.
But anyways, so she listened to the episode on authenticity. We called it authenticity, and we ended up talking about authenticity 40 minutes after we started.
For 3 hours.
So she's like, if I came in here looking for authenticity, I'm like, what the heck is happening?
Yeah.
So, anyways, yeah, I mean, you know that I can
part of the vibe of the show, which is fine.
Sure, I suppose. Yeah. I mean, we could make our own vibe, or we can
You should always do your own thing. Your own vibe is always going to be exponentially better than anything else you could try to replicate or copy.
There it is. Actually, see, this is what. All right. Anyways, so the topic on that. Well, the only thing that I guess came to mind is precisely what we're talking about with respect to the differences in relationship between men and women. Mm-hmm. And so the way that you are describing this thing, so like you said, I have been exploring relationships with men. I have an episode on Some Days Today that you guys can go and see where it's 4 of us men who are talking about this. And I've recorded 2 other episodes with 2 guy friends of mine, and I'm scheduled to record one on Thursday, mm-hmm. but it's not going on Some Days Today because my sole supporter said we can't support you on this one. but
first of all, that's not true.
Okay,
I said
it's okay. You can explain why you're not supporting me later. Okay, but it's okay. Why? It's no, whatever. Anyways, so I'm gonna post it somewhere else, and so I'm anyways, more than anything.
You know what? Let's use this as an opportunity to encourage people to chime in if they want to hear more from you on the topic of.
See, this is how you're just going to. All right, we can go ahead and expose me. When nobody says anything, I prefer.
No, there were lots of good feedback. I told you.
Lots of.
Well, there was at least one raving feedback.
All right.
And people enjoyed it. I think it's it's a great concept. I'm not saying it's not, and I think it's a worthy topic to explore.
Yes, well, we don't have to go. Yes, the whole point is that's not what the podcast that.
Yeah, I think we can have it on a different. I think given our YouTube channel, we have more flexibility to have different segments, so we can actually have a folder or different segment around relationships on it. But I don't know if it's always something that needs to be posted on the actual podcast, because people may be looking for like a diversity of topic and experience. So that's what I'm thinking. But anyways,
I'm not upset.
Okay,
so it's okay.
Could you?
Did you just want to make sure that the audience knows you're still supporting me?
I am a sole supporter. I am your sole supporter. Okay. So yeah, so that's one thing. So
I didn't finish.
Oh, my bad. Go ahead.
Because you insisted on talking about the fact that you are in fact supporting me.
Okay.
And I was just doing that as like a, pass through. But anyways, I'm doing that kind of like promoting myself through your audience. But that said, what I was thinking about is how when you are using this flowery language of, what is it that you said? Like I want to encapsulate them. Did you use that word? Cocoon, man. Like, and I was thinking to myself.
Envelop. That's really what I should have said.
Lord. So I was just thinking to myself, this is precisely the reason why men and women have different relationships. I mean, I would never talk about cocooning my friends like I just in love and cocooning. Like it's just, first of all, it just wouldn't be something that occurred to me. But part of the reason why it wouldn't occur to me is precisely because we're just not acculturated that way.
Yeah. But, you should think about that. If you want to cocoon your friends,
no,
why not?
Because I'm not acculturated that way. I want to be friends with them, but I'm okay. I'm okay with not cocooning them.
So you don't feel okay. So another example of someone. So there are two recent examples. So I'm actually going to do a shout out to my friend Katie. I have one friend who is amazing, Katie.
Is she listening to this?
Yeah, probably, but I'll make sure she does, because I'll tell her that I did a shout out. Speaking of cocooning, she is amazing in doing a good job. Like, I'm looking at 3 handwritten notes from her actually on my table right now that she has sent to me. And this is just a subset of handwritten notes that will arrive in the mail that she will have sent to me, just expressing, maybe her being grateful for our last interaction, or sending me Valentine's Day wishes or whatever it is, and it just always makes my day. It's so beautiful. Number one, the words are always amazing, and she's a great writer, but I think just the thought behind it, for you to think to be so inspired to get a card or write a letter, go mail it. I just think that's such a beautiful, beautiful
gesture.
Especially
in the days of coronavirus.
I mean, it's such a beautiful gesture. Once again, it's something so simple that, you do, but makes whoever the recipient is, it makes them feel loved, makes them feel seen, makes them feel like, they matter. And even if it's just for a slight moment, that you were important enough to them for them to do something like that. That's so beautiful. I actually have decided that I'm going to go get cards and start writing and sending handwritten notes to friends. If not handwritten notes, at the very least a text.
I think that
a text is probably more realistic.
I forget who it was in my podcast. I was like, I don't forget who it was. It was Jed, who talked about how even before, text message came out, like him and his friends used to do like this friendship maintenance call or something like that. It was like, I don't necessarily need to, have a conversation, but it's just checking on you. You can just be like, no, I'm good, whatever, and then hang up, so that you don't have to, because part of the reason why I prefer text is kind of like, I'm just shooting you exactly the words that I want to say.
Yeah.
I don't want to have like the small talk that goes, hey, what's going on, whatever. And so he was like, yeah, I mean, you could just do like a little quick thing just like that.
Yeah. But I think now that we have access to these types of questions, you can choose to explore them on these friendship maintenance calls, so that it's deeper. Because I think what makes friendships so beautiful is your opportunity to explore the other person, and for people to get to know you better, on a much deeper level. And I think it takes much more than, yes, friendship maintenance calls are important, but I think it's also important to try to push beyond the surface to get at, so when you ask someone, how's your day? And they're like, oh, it's fine. A lot of people are suffering. Is it fine, or is there something to talk about? So if you become that person where, when they speak to, they can let their guards down. They don't have to put up a front. They can really tell you about their day or their aspirations, which is also something else that people struggle with, because you have all these ideas and goals, but you don't have anyone who is cheerleading you, who's rooting you on and telling you can do it. So if you make yourself that person, then it's easier for you to be the one to go to when they're looking for inspiration or support. And I think that is that's part of what makes the relationship stronger.
Maybe I actually think that in embarking on this journey that I'm doing of being open and honest, I think exposing yourself actually does way more to just allow you to be comfortable and allows you to grow than it necessarily. And I'm still developing this theory, and I always give the disclaimer that I'm not an expert, so this is all just my thinking. So take it with a grain of salt. But it is better for you as a human being, and it's
what's it?
It being being open and honest, and okay. So engaging in these types of questions and having it answered. Now, and the reason I say this is, I've done this multiple times, and I feel very free when I do that. It's a weight off your chest. You don't have to pretend to be anything that you're not. And I've heard other people, and it's definitely very, you feel, when they do it, you feel also free yourself. Like, what I'm saying? It doesn't necessarily make, I don't think it necessarily makes a friendship better necessarily. I think when both people are doing it, both people are free. Like, that person frees you and he frees himself, because now you feel like, okay, well, I'm free to be vulnerable too. And so it allows you to be vulnerable. And, your being vulnerable also releases the weight off of you. So it allows you to be free. I think that's what it does more than anything, which can tend to make relationships better. But what I feel like more than anything makes relationships grow, and I also think it's part of the reason why men do not have as strong relationships as women do, is varied experiences together. And that's what I think. Like, that's what, like, the guys that I did the first podcast with, we've been going out, because of coronavirus, we only had the opportunity to just have meetings on Zoom. Just this week they started opening back up. We went out for a bike ride, and I felt a lot more close to them, because a lot of times when you are when you're hanging out with people, a lot of times it's just the the activities, the proximity, sometimes you don't have to say anything. You could just feel comfortable not having any conversation. Like, a lot of times, with you, it's not because we're necessarily talking or anything. I could just feel comfortable not having anything to say. Like, there's no, there's an awkward silence. No, because we had so wide array of different experiences. And, like, for guys, the reason I say it's not the same, because girls will be like, oh, let's go and try to do this. Let's go and do this. Let's go and shop. Let's go and, get a drink. Let's go. Guys are limited, I feel like, in the activities that they will allow themselves to do. And so, all those activities always force you to behave in the certain type of way. So that's, I don't know. Again, we are kind of,
so it sounds like you're saying that when you think about developing a healthy, meaningful relationship, vulnerability is important. And we can actually do a segment or a topic on this, but shared experiences are also varied shared experiences. Because that's true. You do have a group of you play basketball with a group of men, but you all generally just play basketball.
Yeah, I mean, we've started making attempts on traveling.
Yeah.
But even then, like, I feel like it's still, guys being guys type of conversation, and or kind of meeting. I just feel like the very type of And, I think the varied makes it different, even though it's going to be varied if you don't do basketball and something else, but the varied it exposes you to behaving in various different ways, and therefore fully fleshing out who that person is, who you are, and getting more and more comfortable at various different settings. And that's how you completely know who that person is. And so you have to have those varied situations, or they're always seeing one side of you.
Yeah.
And you never truthfully get comfortable because you're only exposing a certain side of you.
Right.
And that, yeah.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I like that.
And I just wanted to say that in response, the reason why I'm bringing it in response to the idea of these conversations is not that it's not important. It's just that I don't know that just having these conversations are enough. And sometimes you don't even have to have those deep ass conversations because you've had so many different exposing sides to this person that you're learning those various different things about them. You're learning the reason why, newlyweds may not necessarily not newlyweds, but like when you do the newlywed game and you may not get the answers right, but you still know each other very well, is not because, you need to know the answers, but because you already know their insecurities, what they like, all that stuff, because you've seen those various sides of the person. And so that's why I think that's key.
I agree. We can probably explore this.
I know, right?
Later, because I have a nuanced perspective on that. I actually do think it's important to push the level of conversations and discussions you're having. Because even if you're having varied experiences, and I think part of what comes along with that is, vulnerability, especially if you haven't done something before, you're new to it. You don't have a prescribed narrative that you easily go to for that moment. In basketball, you may have decided, I'm the hustler, I'm the aggressor, so this is the role I'm going to play, what have you. So you go to it all the time. But when you are going fishing for the first time, you may not have a persona created for that. So now you've got to be in a space of a little, some vulnerability, try to figure it out. You may ask questions. I don't know. How do you do, so now you're exposing yourself. I think varied experiences allow for that. But I think questions that, which we'll get to, I think questioning also allows for that, particularly when they are questions that force you to be insightful, but also allows you to be vulnerable. So when you start asking questions about, what's your biggest regret? What are your goals? What are your aspirations? What gives you anxiety? What are you feeling some sort of discomfort telling me and sharing with me? I think all of that is the same sort of thing. It forces you to be dislodged from this space of comfort and your typical narrative to now have to feel your way around in the dark, while you're trying to be honest.
Right.
So I don't know. I think there you can access the same space in varied ways.
I think you can, and I don't disagree with that. I just think two things. One is if you are accessing that, then it's important to have the questions be more varied, and these tend to be, like definitely so piercing, but also, I don't have to have so piercing all the time.
Yeah, no, that's true. I would not recommend that every time you have a conversation with your friend, you ask them, the meaning of life.
Right, but I do agree though that on these various different experiences, if you're just not talking or not trying to get deep, it's going to take much longer for the person to actually really know you. But I mean, people are going to know some things about you anyways, because there's only so much that you can not communicate.
Yeah, we talked about that in the last episode with authenticity. As much as you want to present a certain image of yourself, our ability to be
the nonverbal
perceptive,
communication, the unintended nonverbal communication, because like when there's fear, discomfort, insecurities,
right
people are
the human brain is amazing in being able to process that at the rate and how quickly that it's able to put together probably closer and accurate picture. That's why they say first impressions are very difficult to shake. But yeah, so that's the first thing. So I talked about Katie sending me handwritten notes, which I think is so beautiful. Bless your heart, Katie. It means the world to me. And I will do better as a friend. I say this all the time, but I will put some actions behind my intentions.
You got a lot going on, though.
I do have a lot, but that's not an excuse.
You need to simplify.
No, that's not an excuse.
It's not an excuse because you need to simplify and prioritize.
Yes. So that's one thing. And then another thing that someone did the other day, I sent a newsletter out for our company, MBA Growth. I sent a newsletter out. And I really sort of stressed over the newsletter because this would officially be the first content driven newsletter-ish outside of the others that we've sent in the past, which have been, season greetings, etc. So I wanted to send something out just to announce, just to start to cultivate and build an audience for our consulting firm. And it went out. I felt really trepidatious about it. It's one of those things where you're just screaming into space and you don't know who's listening. That was how I felt. And you were here, and soon after it went out, the president. So I'm on the board of a nonprofit, the Oni Theater. I recently joined, and the president. No, she wasn't one of the members. And she's been involved with the theater for some time. Picked up the phone and called me, and just talked about how great. I forget even really what her sentiments were, but basically she was just like, wow, this was so well put together. Thank you so much for sharing this. I receive lots of mail every day, but this really stood out to me. And, great job. And, she also kind of just wished me, lots of, luck with the business, provided, some blessings. It was just so beautiful once again, because here you are. Definitely as a business owner, it could be very lonely, very stressful. And for someone who does not have to pick up the phone to acknowledge you in any way, to do that, it was just so breathtaking. It really just made my day. And in that moment, once again, I decided to myself that if anything is meaningful, if it impacts me in any way, as opposed to admiring from afar or saying, oh, that was great, wasn't it? I think it's important to pick up the phone or send an email and let that individual know. It was such a gift that I think it's important to pass it forward. So yeah, so that was so those are two things that I'm going to be doing moving forward in an attempt to be just a better person. I can suck sometimes. In terms of my attentiveness to other people, I just think I'm not as giving of my time and emotion because, like you said, I just have so much going on. Not that I don't want to, but I end up having very little room for it, but I want to prioritize it more. Yeah. So, so those are the two things. And then you're going to kill me before we officially jump into the questions.
Because we're 48 minutes in, just so you.
So before we jump into the questions, the last thing I wanted to say is, speaking of journaling, and you mentioned that you don't, I actually think another thing that you've been doing as of late is, every day you'll write me a poem. And this was based on the recommendation. There are various reasons why we do what we do, and I'm not going to put the intention for why you do what you're doing.
Why not? It's one of the things that we learned from boot camp about how to...
marriage boot camp. Yeah. So there's a gift, or there are things that I do for you every day. Mine is, I'm going to make you a cup of coffee or tea every day, and yours is to write me a poem every day. And number one, I look forward to those poems. I'm always so eager.
If it doesn't come, especially if you've already given me the tea. Yeah. Where's my poem?
You have no idea how they just set my day off in a way. I mean, it's another beautiful surprise. I mean, even though I'm expecting it every day, the surprise is, I'm not
that
a poet.
That is the beauty of your personality, because you are you find just the great in the smallest things. And I can't wait till we actually talk about the big leap, because I think that's that's one of the things that I'm learning to do, is not let my there's so many ways my upper limit is it's like I'm always putting a stop to my upper limit, like with the kids, with everything. I just recognize, like, I'm consciously now trying to say, no, let me allow, be in the moment. Yeah, not even in the moment so much, is because I can be in any kind of moment, but the moment needs to be, no, allow that feeling to be, like, you don't have to flow through you. Like, don't try to temper it or stop it. Just and it's allow unconscious it to too, but more than it's not even, for me, it's not even, it's not like, I can't just describe it as flow through or not temper it, because for me, it's more like the way that it hits me, it's more like accept it, like it, except like, I'll have to, when we have time, I'll have to. No, an example is, I'm genuinely eager to receive the poems, and I read it, and you and I, I'll read every line, and you'll tell me what you were thinking about it, and it's such a gift, like I say, and I'll tell you, but you're always surprised, like, it's really nothing. You're always like, are you kidding? Like, what are we talking about here? And I'm just always like, wow, if only you just knew how much this means to me. I don't think you would take it so lightly, but for you, it's almost like, what's the big deal? Moving on. So yeah, I think that's an example of what you mean in terms of upper limit. Because even like with my children, it's kind of like, and it's gonna make me seem like I don't dote on them, but I know what I don't dote on them like that. But they're so effusive sometimes with, and I'm more love. Like I'm pacing. They want to hug you all the time and jump on your lap and kiss you and all of that, and you're just like, okay, exactly. This is cute. Exactly. So it's kind of like I've had to basically kind of, I'm allowing myself to just be like, yes, okay, it's okay to take it in. It's accept it, and allow for whatever positive, like it's exactly what it is. It's like when you're sensing a positive feeling, it's so unconscious, it's so habitual that it's kind of like, I need to be at this pace. Okay, you're trying to get me up over here, and like, I'm not going there. There's tons of other shit going on in the world. Like, I can now think about all the other crap that I got to be thinking about. No, it's like, you can let all that other stuff go and accept it. Yeah. So that's it's a practice, actually. Yeah. And I think our boot camp master guru, Stolzny, also said this. A lot of times when you are behaving in a certain way, especially when you're rejecting love or what have you, it's because you've either convinced yourself that you're not lovable, or that, I don't know why that's what it is. Well, you may want to explore that, meaning that you may want to explore that, because I felt like there was some merit to it. Not that you don't think you're not lovable, but maybe to the extent of effusiveness. Like, why are you gushing over me like this? I'm just, this person. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. I see that. To me, that's not necessarily not lovable. It's more like, I'm a regular human ass being. Well, that's what I'm saying. So yeah, not lovable maybe is a little too harsh, but the degree of love that you're receiving does not match your perception of what you're deserving. Does that make sense? So you're saying, I'm just a regular person, so there's no need for you to get 3 scoops of love when one would just be one just fine. You know what I mean? Like, you want your kids to think, my dad is great. He is there for me. But when it comes to, I just want to kiss him and hug on him and, do all of this, maybe you're thinking it's not really that serious. Yeah, I know that I'm supposed to explore that, and I know you think that, and I've thought about it, and that's part of the reason there's some issues in the book that I could just not relate to, because he talked about this is fundamental flawed. Now I don't in the example he gave, it's just something I couldn't relate to. That's part of the issue that I've always had, is because when people have what I would say is what I think is something that you're always troubled by some crap, and that is not necessarily real. Like, a lot of times it's because there has some traumatic events happen in their lives. Not to say that I'm that bad, but like, I can't really pinpoint anything. Like, I've had my loving family members and all that other stuff, so I can't really say I don't necessarily see myself as not, fundamentally flawed or not lovable. For more than anything, if I were to say it's more like I don't see myself as being great necessarily.
Well,
like, I don't
the same
know.
Concept.
I mean, with my kids, it's not even that though. Like, that's why it's so unique. Like, I don't like, because with my kids, I absolutely think I'm a great dad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
but I mean, there's a difference between a great dad and a great individual. Do you know what I mean? But it doesn't matter. We can explore it some other time. But as someone who has been in the business of just loving on you for 21 years, 22? Yeah, 22. We met in 1998. You've continued to resist it in ways that, like, you continue to be shocked, by the level of gushiness that I can get into sometimes. So maybe it's just hardwired into you. You're just like, chill out. It's not that serious. And I'm like, but it is. You're so great. Anyways, so yeah, love the poems. And it's such a nice surprise. But the reason I brought it up has nothing to do with what we just talked about. The reason I brought it up is because a lot of times, speaking of journaling, the poems will reflect what happened the day before. Like, you're sort of chronicling our lives in the poem. You know what I mean?
That's
so,
true.
And you've been doing this for some time. I mean, I feel like you've been writing poems for probably, you were doing it for, once again, going back to me losing the things that you write me. There was a time when you did it for a really long time, a couple of years ago, for a long period of time. And then, maybe you took a break of like a couple of months or so, and now you're back at it. But yeah, I'm pretty sure if we went back to look through those daily entries, we'll be able to get a sense for, what was going on in our lives. Because you tend to talk about, what's happening the day before in those poems. So anyways, I should do more of that. I should journal. I've just never been someone who writes, but I wonder, that's probably an upper limit that I'm putting on myself. So I will try to be more intentional with my words and writing things down. But apparently, now getting to our topic of the day,
57 minutes in, we might have to do this.
Just 2 questions.
Or, it's quite possible that we just name this something else and then pick up next time with the questions and keep it to an hour.
Maybe. I don't know.
So we can name this Attempting to Talk About.
Attempting to get our shit together.
No, Attempting to Talk About. Or, what did we talk about? Like, we talked about relationships.
We've talked about everything. Journaling.
Lord.
Who cares? We're here now. I forget what I was going to say. But yeah, so speaking of, the questions I'm going to ask you. So we have a list of questions. And what I want to do is, you'll look through the 40 questions. You'll ask me the question, I'll answer, and then you'll take turn answering. So I am going to take one. And the question is, what is the most impactful no that you've said recently?
How recent is recent?
It doesn't matter. It's up to you.
The most impactful no that I've said recently was me, and I talk about this in another chapter, and I kind of want to, not everybody listens to every episode, so most impactful no I probably said recently was no to myself and my pettiness. Hear me.
Pettiness. Okay.
Like like I said, I talked about this in a previous episode. Like there was as I was growing, there was a time when I assumed certain things about somebody doing certain things to me, that and I was, I got into my head about what the intention behind certain actions were. And I kind of was going to go in a direction that was going to reflect how I typically react to these sorts of things. I get into my head that somebody's behaving a certain way, and then now I get upset about it, and whatever the case may be. And so the most impactful no after we had that conversation was me saying no, that I wasn't going to do that. And so, once I did that, it was, they describe the ego being killed when you expose it, when you see it. And I felt like that was, it didn't necessarily mean it's gone and I don't struggle with it, but it was definitely like, oh my God, I can actually, make a decision.
I think I remember that experience.
Yeah, in the car on the drive home. Yeah, it was like, I can actually make a decision. Like this is something that's within my control, and this, like, these thoughts are decisions, and it's not that it's not hard at every time, but it's getting easier and easier, and you go down the path, start going downhill, because there was an uphill battle at that point. You start going downhill once you make that first decision. So I would say that would be my most impactful no that I...
Yeah. And I think the way Eckhart Tolle, who I think is the one who discusses it, is that the ego doesn't stand up to scrutiny. So if you allow yourself consciously to recognize that this is my ego at play, that's 90% of the process, so, and it's a difficult concept to explain, I think, particularly if you haven't been sort of undertaking the study of your ego and how it interlaces itself into your day-to-day being or presentation of who you are. But a lot of the things, the narratives that we buy into, the things that we are willing to die for, quote unquote, the things that we value, a lot of it, is all egocentric. So there are times when you're saying, oh, I can never do that, I would never do that. And you just sort of see it as a foregone conclusion. But there are times when, once you embark on the study, you start to see how it's wreaking havoc on your life and your relationships and your attempt to grow. So once you start questioning it, that's the journey that you're saying becomes very difficult, because, these are deeply held beliefs that have sort of shaped your understanding of who you are. So now you're having to question all of that, and you have to be comfortable, doing what most people are not comfortable doing, which is admitting that you could be wrong. Maybe I misunderstood, maybe I don't have this right. And I think that's a difficult thing, and that's what you said. So once you allow for that possibility, it's downhill from there, is what you were saying. But the process of getting yourself to see a different perspective is a very difficult one. So yeah, that's a good one. That's a good no. Do you want me to answer the same question, or should we?
Is that what we're doing? Is that what they do in Skin Deep? Is this Skin Deep?
You can choose 2.0. So the person who's asking the question can say, I could either choose to answer it, or the person can say, yeah, why don't you go ahead and answer that? So it's more of an honor system where we honor whatever we want.
Honor yourself.
My most impactful no recently, I feel like I talk about this quite a bit. If when I think about in terms of impact, it's really just saying no to my job. It's time to go. I think that was so huge for me. Of course, now I look back and I realize that I could not continue down that path. So it actually doesn't even seem as huge, but in the moment, it was huge. It's kind of like, once again, me going head to head with my ego, questioning my reality for what it is, understanding that I want to do something else. I want to exist in a different space and be something else, but not having a roadmap or not even understanding how the two, like how that gap could be bridged. So yeah, I think that was a huge risk, but I had to sort of step into it. So that probably has been the most impactful no thus far. And it's set me off on a new course, which has been exciting.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed it has.
And a quick takeaway is, you know, when you say no to certain things, especially when they don't feed you, you say yes to so many more things that are meaningful for you. So that's probably how you should see it, as less of a, what am I saying no to, but what am I clearing up the space to welcome in my life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, now this is your question.
Yeah, so you're going to ask me a question.
What is something you love now that you never could have imagined you would like in the past?
Oh, wow. This is funny. I love cooking for my family. And I laugh because they don't necessarily enjoy eating my food.
So do you love cooking for your family, or do you just love cooking?
I don't love cooking, which is what's funny, but I love cooking for I love, like, even when I get an idea. It's funny, the other day, you know, I think I had made something, and even like the night before, the night after, going into the next day, I was just reminiscing about how great it was. Like, wow. That was great. Remember, I even brought it up and you were shocked. Like, are you still talking about it?
I'm shocked now.
You're shocked now?
What? I don't even remember being shocked before.
Yeah, you were shocked. Now. You were just like, what is, are you kidding me? This crab, not crab. I think you enjoyed, I don't even know what the meal was.
Was it the beans?
Oh, maybe. Yeah. I don't remember what.
Actually, this meal was actually pretty good.
Today's meal?
Yeah. The cauliflower.
And my chicken, my attempt at chicken.
Chicken masala. Chicken tikka masala.
Tikka masala. Honestly, I cannot express to you how much I love it. And I think what it is, you know, when you think about being a mom, and let me take it out of the space of being a mom. When you want to be of service, and when you want to occupy the space of nurturing and giving selflessly to the people you love in a way that it pays dividends, because I also see it as providing healthy options, you know, so it's teaching healthy habits. It's, you know, exploring with different types of food. It's me being in the kitchen and looking for ways to be creative. And I think maybe, you know, when we think about bringing something into fruition, you know, maybe it's a quick hit, you know, in terms of being, you know, conceiving of something, and then an hour or two later, it's on the plate. And it would be ideal if people enjoyed it. It would be, that would be the cherry on top. If y'all actually enjoy the food.
There's some food we enjoy.
There are some things you enjoy.
Kids love lasagna.
Yeah, they do. There are some things that you enjoy. And they, for whatever reason, we have 3 children.
Your jollof rice?
Yeah, my fried rice as well.
Your fried rice is great, but your jollof rice
is good.
They love it.
They do love it.
They love it.
You don't love it. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Okay. The point is...
your fried rice is awesome. Let me just say that.
The point is that I have disassociated myself from the response. You know what I mean? As much abuse as I get once it hits the table, and everyone is like, what is this? And why are we doing this? You would think that I will have learned and that I would be scarred.
Or you would revert back to cooking exactly what you know they like. No?
No. Every day I'm like, what else could I make for these people? I mean, it's just so exciting. And you even notice that a lot of times, sometimes I don't even eat the food. I'm just so happy to be. So yeah, that's one thing that I truly...
Now, the real question is, if you're not eating the food, Like, are you just forcing us to eat stuff you wouldn't even eat?
No, I enjoy it. There are times that I don't eat it till the next day, maybe because I've been snacking on it throughout the process or I'm not hungry. I don't know. I mean, there's some things that I cook, like today I made chicken. I don't eat chicken, so there's some things that I cook that I don't eat. But I really enjoy the process. I'm going to have to study why that is. It just brings me joy. Now, the question is, what do you enjoy now that you didn't think you would? I don't even consider myself someone who enjoys cooking. I really don't. I think it is very specific to, I enjoy cooking when I'm cooking for my family. It goes together. It's kind of like we were saying the other day, or you were saying, I only enjoy my children. I enjoy kids that are mine, not other people's kids. So I think it's sort of the same concept in that I don't know that if I lived by myself or if I was asked to cook for other people that I'm like, oh my God, this is so great. I don't think so, but who knows? But I thoroughly enjoy cooking for you guys. I really do. Whether or not you like it, that's your business. It takes nothing away from me. So yeah. What about you?
What do I love now? I have to answer that.
Yeah, I think it would be good. But if you don't have an answer for it, that's fine. We'll move on.
What do I love now that I didn't think that I would love? I don't know. I think I love the same things I've always loved. Pizza.
Well, it doesn't have to be food.
I mean, it could be anything.
It could be anything.
I'm trying to determine what. I still hate cooking. I've had to cook, but nowadays it's kind of like, y'all are old enough. If your mom ain't cooking, figure it out. I don't. Let me see. What I love now that I couldn't imagine myself. I don't know. I don't have anything.
That you didn't enjoy. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe engaging in prolonged discussions with men. Friendship building.
Yeah, maybe. Okay, so I did think of something when I first read it.
You used to resist traveling.
What?
Oh, maybe you just didn't want to do it. Maybe it was your upper limit. Because I used to force us on a lot of our vacations.
Yeah, it was definitely. It wasn't because I didn't like. I always had a good time, and I've told you that it wasn't necessarily that I didn't like traveling. It was because, I was worried about other things.
The financials.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
What was I going to say?
Relationship building.
No. So what I was going to say when I first started was like, I'll answer this in a more aspirational way. That I'm learning to like it and it's getting there, but I can't necessarily say I love it yet. But I would say, just embracing uncertainty.
Oh, that's a good one.
Because I definitely am not a person who likes uncertainty. Like, I need to know my thing. But like, there are times when I'm, when it's not going necessarily well. Like, I don't know exactly what's going on, and I'm like, oh my God. Typically that would freak the hell out of me. And then now I'm like, okay, this is a good thing. It's, this is a period of growth. This is like, so I tell myself that whenever it is that it's not that, like, I remind myself, and then there's a level of exhilaration that you feel once you accept that. It's like, okay, yeah, this is good. And it's kind of like, if you really think about it, the same thing that happens when you're like on a roller coaster. Part of the reason why you're excited and you're feeling exhilarated is because of that rush of, oh my God, I don't know what's going to come next. And that's why people get themselves scared, and go watch scary movies. But that's precisely what it is. If you accept that, then there is a level of exhilaration that comes from it. And it's reminding myself of that whenever it is that I start to feel that and be like, oh my God, instead of going in the opposite direction and running away, learning to embrace that. And I wouldn't say that I've gotten to the point where I love it yet, but it's definitely something that is growing. So, yeah. So
it's funny, your roller coaster example or metaphor, that was something similar that I was on another podcast with another friend of ours, Mike, recently with Connect in Politics. That's the name of it. And he was asking, the question was, what advice would you give your younger self And I was saying that it would be that it's not that serious. Like life is not to be endured. You know, it should be more like going to like an amusement park where, you know, there's certain rides that you can go on. Some lines are going to be longer than others, but ultimately it's an uncertain experience, but you take it for what it is. You know, you enjoy it. And when the moment is over, you're not begrudging it. You appreciate it for what it is, and you keep it moving, you know? So it's very lighthearted. There are opportunities for adventure. There are opportunities for you to stroll and, you know, sort of take more of the scenic route or experience. But yeah, you make of it whatever you want, but it should not be something that is nerve-wracking and torturing you, because if it is, then you probably shouldn't be going to the amusement park.
I mean, it's again, once again, the upper limit. And you know, we talked about real quickly, we talked about how you are, quote unquote, like you see the positivity in things. And I think, you know, what I'm learning is that you know, as I'm getting through this, is that that's the exact way to be. Like, it is about just letting go. It is like when you say things, no, you just gotta let it go. It's absolutely true. But you have to get there before you recognize how true it is. And trying to tell somebody who is not there that you just gotta let it go is never gonna get them to the point where they just let it go.
I think the biggest lesson, not to harp too long on this topic, the biggest lesson or the biggest reason from my experience as to why it's difficult to let it go is because you're so bought into your ability to analyze any given situation and come up with a reasonable conclusion or decision. So once you've decided this is worthy of me being upset about or putting my attention towards, it's very difficult for someone else to say, is it? You know, you would have to be willing to, once again, let go of the idea that you're always right and that there could be multiple ways to look at the world, or even if it's a specific argument or whatever it is that is the issue at hand. There's so many different ways to analyze it, and ultimately you can come up with a million different positions on it because we're all different. So I think that's the process. I think the main process is really revisiting your assumptions. But I think if you do a good job at that, then it makes it easy to let things go.
And yes, and I think the reason why the big leap and the concept of the upper limit helps you to get there. And there's like little steps. Every book that I'm reading is, you know, dislodging one piece of the walls that I've built, and it's like, oh, there's that little piece here, and you know, little sunlight is able to flash through once you take away that brick. You never know which one is going to do it, and that's why you got to continue to keep on learning. But part of the reason why for me that part hits with the upper limit is because, you know, it's about letting it go becomes much easier when you say, no, I can choose just to be happy. Like, I don't have to be like, oh, let me take myself back down. I can choose to accept it. I can, like, you can choose to be like, you can choose to continue to be happy. You can choose to continue to just, and that allows you to then be like, oh, well, why am I choosing? And that, you know, different things work for different people, but that's what worked for me. Like, why do I have to identify with this and not let it go? No, I can choose this. I can choose to be happy. There's no reason why I can't choose that. There's no reason why I have to go in and be like, I'm going to dwell on this right here, because that's not happiness. Why don't you choose? Like, why are you limiting yourself? Why is there a ceiling there for your feeling?
To quickly explain the concept of upper limit, and I know we'll have a much longer episode on the book itself, The Big Leap. My understanding of it is upper limit is, you know, just some arbitrary boundaries or barriers that you've placed on yourself. So let's just imagine yourself being tethered to a specific amount of space to move in, and that represents your happiness, your allotted happiness or comfort or what have you. Anytime you push, it's kind of like a yo-yo. Anytime you push beyond that limit, you really start to feel discomfort because you're questioning, should I be out here? Should I be experiencing it? So your mind automatically wants to remind you this is too much so that it can bring you back into that zone or that space that you've set for yourself in terms of how happy you can be, or what you are entitled to, what you can tap into, etc. And what you're saying is that as you're reaching the limit and you start to feel the anxiety, it's allowing yourself to say, no, it's fine. Let's just ride it out and let's go beyond and see what happens. And I think the more you push that upper limit, the more you start to push the space and the realm within which you can operate.
Right. And again, and yes, we are supposed to be moving on, but I think part of the reason why these are good is because they are just essentially questions to ourselves, right? Because we're opening up and just talking about the things that work for us. But I just wanted to say, so the Untethered Soul also talks about these boundaries, and the way that you described it with the wall, I tend to think of how he described it I think he specifically talked about, the wall that you've set up in the Untethered Soul. And he talks about also the idea of not closing up, like the idea of when you are feeling happy, just stay happy. But the reason why this one, the way that it was framed, worked better for me is because the way that he was describing the wall, he was describing it as once you start going past that wall, you start to feel pain. And so because you start to feel pain, this is not because it's not true, you do start to feel pain, any kind of discomfort that you're feeling. And he was describing it as that you're feeling a discomfort, and because you're feeling that pain, you take yourself back behind the wall. It's kind of like a dog with an invisible collar, the electronic collar. He learns not to go past that perimeter, even though there is nothing there to see. But and he talks about closing, and it wasn't necessarily as clear to me. And I understood it's like, just don't close. But when the guy talked about it being an upper limit when you are actually happy, because that freaking, like, it's easy to see, okay, I'm being discomforted, but you don't actually realize that you're actually preventing yourself from continuing to be happy. Like you're on your way to being happy, and you're like, here's something else that's coming. Here's another, I'm happy right now. Here's a thought that's coming in from the side.
That's looking to knock you down.
That's looking to knock you down. And like, you can just be like, I'm just going to pay attention to that thought and go back down. You can be like, no, I'm good here.
I'm going to continue to be happy.
I'm just going to let that one go so I can continue to be happy. And it's that for me was like, yeah, I am choosing to go back down. Why am I doing that?
Yeah. And I, once again, just so, because people haven't read the book, so I want to put it in context so they understand it. It's kind of like when you get a promotion. You're so excited, you've worked so hard for it, you finally get the promotion, and you can't even enjoy the moment because now you're thinking, oh shit, now these people expect me to do some work. So now, as opposed to just reveling in all of your hard work and your accomplishments and in the moment, automatically now you've completely knocked yourself down because now you're worried about people not being able to meet expectations.
I'll see an email on Sunday. It's like, God damn.
Yeah.
It's like, no, I'm chilling right now.
In the moment.
Tomorrow when I get up, when I'm gonna start to do work, I'm gonna call you. I'm gonna be like, okay, I just saw that email.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And then I don't have to ruin my time right now.
Yeah.
These people are gonna live. Yeah. This is not life or death. Yeah. So
I think it's so the upper limit, and it's not limited to happiness per se, but that was that was the illustration of it. Yeah. But I think it's really just identifying, it could be your aspirations, it could be, I want a house that's a certain type, and once you get it, you can even envision getting anything bigger. It's like, oh my God, who am I to want that? A lot of people ask questions of it themselves. I want to get this type of job, but I can never be the CEO. I want to, whatever it is, right? So putting limits on yourself that keeps you within a certain narrative.
I feel like we talked about this whole thing.
No, there's plenty to talk about. So the next question is, and I love this one.
Wait, are you serious?
What?
You know what time it is? We might have to, okay.
So we're going to do 2 more.
Okay.
So the next question is, okay, I'm going to ask this of you. No, okay, yeah. Now I'm going to ask this of you, and I'm also going to choose to answer it because I love my response. This one. The next question
Shouldn't you be asking questions because you want to know what I think?
No, I do. I do.
You want to talk.
But I also want to talk about my thing. What was the most bizarre encounter you've had in your life?
Jesus. You've already you can think of the most bizarre encounter. What the hell?
I would not consider. So I'm going to widen the scope from being an encounter per se to experience. So it could be the same thing. But what's the most bizarre experience or encounter that you've had in your life?
I don't know. I run into all kinds of bizarro people, I guess.
Let's hear it.
I don't record it long enough. Like I probably go back and I tell you about it, and then after that it's gone from my mind. I'm bizarre. Bizarre. Can I pass and you can answer it since you got an answer for this one?
You know I'm excited about this.
Bizarre encounter.
You should even already know what my answer is going to be. The most bizarre experience that I've had thus far happened maybe about 4 years ago when a tree sprouted up out of nowhere in my yard. Now, let me paint a picture.
Oh my God. This is
Don't be a hater. If you didn't believe in magic before, there's no way you can argue against this. So now, when we moved into the house that we are living in now, we had a completely open backyard. No tree in sight. There's no shade, nothing. There's no tree in sight. And, I want to have a backyard where I can look out my kitchen window. I'm doing dishes and I see beautiful trees. I can sit under the tree. So we moved into this house in 2013. So probably 4 years later, in 2016 or 2017, I decided, you know what, I'm just going to go buy a couple of trees. And trees are expensive. But I did some research. I was looking for some fast-growing trees. So I found some maple trees at Home Depot.
Japanese maple.
Dwarf maple trees. I didn't know there were dwarf maple trees because I'd done some research and I was like, oh my God, I think these are the trees. So I bought them, 2 trees, and I think they were like $250 each.
Not only did you buy them, you had me dig them. No, I think you got to dig them even deeper.
Yeah.
So you not only are they not going to grow, but you started them off.
I wanted them to be well-rooted. I wanted them to be stable. I wanted them to grow. Anyways, 2 trees, bought them. And my expectation was that, the trees would grow. Alas, 2 years later, realized they're not growing. That's fine. They still add beautiful color and, personality to our yard. But 2 or 3 years ago, all of a sudden, once again, this is me. And I planted one of the trees in the exact spot that I wanted. Maybe slightly to the right that I wanted, so that when I'm looking out my window, I'm looking at, a beautiful tree and, just feeling comfortable with my space. If I wanted to go sit out in the yard, it would happen. All of a sudden, 2 years ago, I look out and almost overnight, a tree has sprouted in my yard, like a foot, like just a couple of feet from the one that I planted, but in the same exact spot that I wanted. And this tree pretty much grew overnight, came out of nowhere. And in 2 years, this tree has, it is huge. You could not tell me this tree hasn't always been there. In fact, you were convinced the tree had always been there because you could not imagine. First of all, why would a tree come out of nowhere? Why would it be in the location that you've been looking for, that you wanted? And no, this makes no sense, you were saying. And even the children were convinced that the tree had always been there. luckily, there were some pictures that we had taken when we didn't have the tree there. And we were able to go back that as recently as I think it was like 3 years ago, the tree was not there. Like it had just started growing. And now it's just part of our yard. And you would think it's always been there. Now, I don't know nothing about trees. Perhaps this happens all the time. I don't know. But the fact that this tree came out of nowhere around the same time that I was really investing time and energy into actually bringing a tree in there, and it came out of nowhere, and this tree sprouted as quickly as it did in the same exact location that I wanted, is pretty bizarre to me. I don't know what else to say. That is magical. Magical. I love it. You know, and you know, the kids, or at least Amy calls it the magic tree. So that to me is my response.
Awesome.
Have you thought about yours?
No.
Okay.
I don't have anything that bizarre. Or
at least bizarre, right?
I don't know. I wouldn't be able to describe anything. No.
But that's the power of manifestation. That's the power. And for me, you know, there are ways that you can sort of make reason out of certain things, particularly when they're around, you know, if you want to manifest success around your job and your company and what have you. There are ways for you to piece together the pieces of the puzzle once it's happened. But for a tree to grow out of nowhere, that to me is metaphysical. Almost. Maybe. But anyways, go ahead.
Okay. Wow. I don't know if I want to. Okay.
So is this going to be, this is the last question.
Yep.
So make it good.
What do you want on your what do you want your epitaph to be?
So I'm guessing that's my headstone.
Yes.
Okay.
Let me make sure. That's what
Huh?
Let me make sure, because that's what I'm thinking.
Oh yeah. I'm like, I think so.
A phrase or form of words written in the memory of a person who has died, especially an inscription on a tombstone. Yes.
So I'm answering. I think you should go first, or do you want me?
Why would I go first?
Okay, you're right. You asked me.
I asked you.
You're right.
You can pass though if you don't want to go. You haven't thought of it.
No. I mean, I haven't thought of it, but I have a response. Yeah. I think. Wow, I'm adding to the words that I would want it to say, but essentially something to capture the notion of, and she lived effortlessly a beautifully inspired life. Those are the 3 words that resonate with me. Like when I get up every day, I want my movements to be effortless, meaning I'm not trying to bang my head, you know, doing something that is not meaningful, interesting, that's not for me. I just want to experience the world effortlessly. I want it to be beautiful, meaning, you know, I want to be surrounded by art, beauty, you know, nice, kind people. And I want it to be inspired. You know, I want my movements to come from a space of inspiration, so that it's meaningful to me. But I also want to be able to have such an abundance of it that I can also be an inspiration to others who may need it. So those are the 3 words that I think sort of stand out to me.
Nice. He lived an authentic. He lived his authentic self. He was his authentic self, and he inspired others to do this. He inspired millions to do the same.
That's good. That's good. You know why that question is really good, actually, is that it gives you an opportunity to think about how to put that into action in your daily movements. So that's good. So every day, you know, when you think about what you want your tombstone to say, you should think about how you would assess the end of that day, and use that as a way to put your agenda together for the next day. You know what I mean? So that you continue the practice of authenticity more and more every day. And for me, that I'm moving as lightly as I can letting go of the things that don't matter, and that I'm looking for beautiful, inspirational ways to live my life. So that's a good one.
Yeah.
Okay, and then my last one.
Wait, that wasn't you asked first.
No, you asked. You said, what would you like your tombstone to be?
No, I'm saying didn't you ask me the first question? Or did I ask you the first question? No, you asked me the first question, which means that it should land on me.
Babe, I don't know. All I know is I had in mind that I'm going to ask a question, and goddamn it, I'm going to ask a question.
Well, you know what time it is?
I don't know what Babe, please, focus on the moment. There are actually 2 questions. We're going to have to do this game again. This is really good. So my question is going to be, what is something you love about yourself? That's a good way to close us out.
Is it?
Yeah. What is something you truly love about yourself?
Truly love about myself. I always say this. I think I like my insight. Like I like my I feel like I bring insight, and I think that I articulate it in a way that is could bring insight. Like because it's one thing to think it, because I think a lot of people may think it, but it's another thing. I think and it might be because you have insight that you are also thinking about how to articulate it in such a way, like how does it make sense? You have to, I have to do way more of it so that I can be much better at it. But I think that's what I love about myself. I think I think when I think about, like, again, one of the things I said earlier with respect to my children, like a lot of times I'll want to solve problems because I want to be able to articulate it to them. But I think that whenever I do speak to them, I think they feel it, and so that's what I think it is. And I'm hoping that whatever unique way my perspective is being expressed through this podcast, that people are also feeling it.
That's great. It's because you're a writer at heart. You like to, I think you appreciate words. And the insight is meaningful to you, not necessarily just for the nuggets that you're sharing, even though I feel like that's important to a certain perspective. But I think from my understanding of you, I think you also appreciate how, your delivery of it, sort of how it unravels. And I think it's because you have an appreciation for words. I appreciate words as well, but not my own words, other people's words, in terms of how they piece it. So that's why I like poetry. But I could see why you enjoy your own insight, because that is a good gift to have.
Thank you. I'll accept that.
You should. You should fight against your upper limit that's dying to creep through right now and remind you. It's not mine. I'm actually surprised. I feel like you know all the answers to these questions. What I truly love about myself, and it's gonna sound very vain,
but that's also
the nature of the question. I didn't write these questions.
It's the nature of you too. I mean,
to be vain.
Yes, it's okay.
Wow. So you think I'm vain?
I think that you are justifiably vain.
Oh shit! We may need to explore this on a whole on another episode. We don't got time for this, but I love it. Honestly, I'm curious as to what you mean by that. But what I truly love about myself is my aura. Is that weird?
I don't know.
Okay, so I'm going to explain it. So I think, the movie, There's Something About Mary, I think I don't remember the movie, but I think there was just something about her that's hard to, je ne sais quoi, that's hard to put your kind of finger on, but people can feel it, they can sense it.
Okay.
Yeah. I think my
aura. I think that's actually the answer to the question I said, justifiably vain. I think that explains it all.
Because of my aura?
Yeah.
Okay. But let me explain it. It's more recently that I've discovered this about myself. You know how people will say, oh my God, I love my legs and I love my whatever. I don't know that I've ever attached myself too much to my physical being. I don't know one thing that I would say absolutely love about myself. So, but I think I just really enjoy myself.
Well, you could just marry yourself, couldn't you? Shit. I just jump back and kiss myself.
I really could. I really could. I don't understand. It's so interesting. And I didn't realize the extent of it until I told you when I was watching Mack and I in politics. So I was on a podcast, and I know this sounds so vain, but believe me, this is not coming from a place of ego. I don't even know how to express it.
And that's probably why. Yeah, maybe that is why you're so. So you say you've never felt that way, but maybe that's why you're always so positive, and this is why you say it's not how I feel about myself, because maybe I don't see myself as. I don't love my.
Oh, aura. As a me. Oh yeah. Maybe I don't know. A ball of things. She is. How do you put it? A slice of butter and whatever it is. Like I just really enjoy. Once again, it's not even physical. That's why I had to describe it as aura. It's just my being. I don't understand what it is, but it became apparent to me recently how much I love myself when I was watching myself.
Lord.
I was watching myself on a podcast episode that I did. And
Connecting Politics.
Connecting Politics. We keep plugging Mike's thing. And I was just like, yeah, no, I love, if I didn't know this person, I would want her to be my friend. Do you understand what I'm saying? And I did initially feel weird saying that, but then I thought to myself, when we are, like, I actually think, and that was actually a sign to me that I am occupying more and more the space of my essence. Once again, that sounds very whatever, but that's not my point. I think, the reason why you appreciate art or poetry or, flowers or whatever is because there's just something about it. It's a reminder of, God's creations, the infinite beauty and all of that. So we are all representations of that, who we are and how we're pulled together and, how we move and our thoughts and ideas and concepts and all of that. If we allow ourselves to truly shine through and expose our essence, I think it is pretty amazing, to behold, and I think that's why it's important for others to really just allow for their true essence to shine through as well. And I'm not saying that I'm doing a great job at it or perfect, but I think I'm starting to get a glimpse for who I am and maybe who I'm becoming. I don't know what it is, but I fucking love it. It is.
So do I.
It's amazing.
So do I.
That's amazing. I don't know if I believe it, but but I appreciate it.
Why wouldn't you believe it? See, is this your upper limit?
No, I think I do kind of believe it. Because it's undeniable, what can I say? But yeah, so
mercy.
So yeah, so that brings us to the conclusion of this episode.
I hope you enjoyed it.
I did. It was really good. I think
I was talking to the audience.
Oh, you gotta face the audience when you say that.
Oh, well, I'm still thinking podcast.
Oh, okay, gotcha. So now we've got to move to. Well, thank you guys for joining us today on another episode of Some Days Today, where we encourage you to live your life like it's a fucking vacation.
Yo.
Signing out, it's Bola Adina. Follow us, like us, share this episode with your friends.
I'm Mack Ardina.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm here.
Mack Ardina.
I know your aura is shining bright like that.
Yeah. But, so follow Mack at Mack Ardina.
Oh no, just follow Some Days.
Oh yeah, follow Some Days Today. I changed